Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. The Mohawk community of Ganasatake and Oka are locked in contention over a proposed land settlement agreement, with tensions mounting following a public information session held this week. Both communities fear this could become the Oka crisis of 2019. Lindsay Richardson explains.
Inside of this church in Oka, the arguments were loud. But outside, the drumming was louder.
Est-ce que je peux demander à quelqu'un de fermer les portes, s'il vous plaît? On n'entend pas très bien à l'intérieur.
It was supposed to be an open-door meeting, a public information session. But like so many times before, the Mohawks of Ganasatake say their neighbors in Oka have closed the door on negotiations as land disputes wage on.
You can see the frustration between the two, and there's no need for that. You know, this land deal or land claim, it's not needed.
A developer from Oka recently reached an agreement in principle with the Mohawk Council to donate a parcel of land to the federal government for possible transfer back to Ganasatake.
Those are pottery shards found at Oka Park. They date between 1,000 to 2,000 years.
They are the original occupants of the territory, as Grand Chief Serge Simon often reminds stakeholders with hard proof in hand.
It's just simply to contradict the mayor of Oka, who says we've only been there for 300 years when the priests arrived. Not true.
But the community says this deal is too good to be true. If pushed through, the developer would receive a tax cut. There's no guarantee Ganasatake will successfully reacquire the land from Canada, and no guarantee that Oka won't put up a fight to preserve what they say is their land.
On va tout faire pour ne pas avoir de crise d'Oka, mais on veut se faire respecter.
If a call on the federal government to intervene goes unanswered, both parties say the situation could implode, mirroring the 1990 Oka crisis.
The next Oka crisis would not necessarily be triggered by the Mohawks, but by his citizens. So he's been talking to his citizens in an incendiary way and trying to raise his citizens against my people. You're going to see something happen. You think we're going to just stand there and let them abuse our people down here? No.
The two parties have not spoken in person since 2017, when protests forced construction stoppage on another disputed lot in Oka. 2 years later, construction has resumed. Tension between leaders remains high, and demonstrations by community members are escalating.
Here, the development is growing. Montreal, you know, it's coming out this way, and we don't want that.
I need you to move now.
Why? Or what?
You have to move. We cannot stay
Or
here
what?
for filming, for intimidating.
Who am I intimidating?
Just one day after calling for peace and order, a Mohawk man says he was already intimidated by authorities in Oka while idling in a public space within earshot of the mayor.
The city owns the park, and if the city asks you to leave, you have to leave.
I don't have to go anywhere.
A situation all too familiar to one lived almost 30 years ago.
See this shit? This is Ganasatake every day. Monkey see, monkey do.
Begging the question, if no consensus is reached, will history repeat itself? Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Ganasatake, Mohawk Territory.
A First Nation community in the Northwest Territories is one step closer to having more control over their finances, because the traditional lands of the Yellowknife's Dene could be returned back to the community. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs has that story.
This is Dilo. It's located on the tip of Yellowknife. Yet the housing and infrastructure differ greatly. Chief Ernest Betsina is one of the 200 Yellowknife's Dene members who live here.
As you can see in Dilo, you can see the physical difference between the city side on my left. They got beautiful sidewalks, you got beautiful drainage, and yet in Dilo, you can literally see where the sidewalk ends, and this is where Dilo starts. There's no sidewalks, there's no drainage, take the members back.
Right now, Dilo falls under Yellowknife jurisdiction.
Seen a lot of changes throughout the years.
Chief Betsina says it's created headaches for decades, as Dilo has to rely on the other Yellowknives Dene First Nation of Detta to access federal and territorial money for them.
I'm just frustrated with the whole system, and yet, and I mentioned again, the city gets grant in lieu of taxes to take care of us. Well, city, take care of us.
But Dilo will hopefully have its own jurisdiction.
We are pleased to know that the Yellowknives Dene First Nation has reviewed and considered the boundary as proposed, and
Yellowknife's mayor and council unanimously praised a proposed boundary change at a committee meeting this week. It's been a long time coming for Yellowknife's Dene leaders.
It's pretty significant, and we've been years in discussion, not only with this, but previous city councils and mayors.
The change would also include Joffel Island, Houseboat Bay, along with other important sites around the city. Pilot's Monument is a popular location for tourists, but if you look around, you'll see no signage showing the history of the Yellowknives Dene. Except for this plaque located several meters down the hill and hidden in the bushes. But with the boundary change, Chief Betsina says more cultural markers will be posted.
We want our sacred sites to be preserved.
The boundary change is part of the larger Akecho land claim process involving the Yellowknives Dene, Litsulke, and Denenekwe First Nation. Chief Betsina says the boundary change will give Dilo more control over money for housing, programs, and services.
Pretty optimistic. Pretty optimistic that good changes are going to be coming, and more changes.
thank you. Ms. Besshill, did you want to touch
The city of Yellowknife will likely grant a formal approval at the next council meeting this month. At that time, it'll be up to the territorial government to make a recommendation to the Minister of Lands. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Dilo.
You may remember the story of Charlie and Masqua. Last fall, the two orphaned bear cubs were rehabbing in Alberta. In June, the cubs were released by Alberta Environment and Parks, but on Canada Day, 16-month-old Charlie was shot and killed by a farmer. Cochrane Ecological Institute says that Charlie was released too close to human settlements. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Cleo Smeaton has been rehabbing animals here since the 60s. Thousands of animals of all types. She helped reintroduce the swift fox to the Kainai people and Blackfoot people in Montana. She was given a Blackfoot name for her work. Since 1986, the Cochrane Institute has been rehabbing black bear cubs for release back into the wild. Smeaton says the two cubs, Charlie and Masqua, should have been released as a pair and far from human settlements. Alberta Environment and Parks disagreed and released Charlie in June near Crow's Nest Pass in southern Alberta. 2 weeks later, he was shot by a farmer. Smeaton says Charlie was released too close to humans.
It made more sense to put both cubs in one transport, take them up to the Wilmore Wilderness area, and let them go together up there, rather than put them in two separate transports with 4 drivers going to the opposite ends of the province. And the southern part of the province is way more human impacted than the north.
Smeaton was also disappointed with the timing of the release. She feels a winter release gives a much better chance of survival for cubs.
That if you release in the winter with an artificial hibernating box or an artificial den site, you have an 88% survival. Whereas if you release in the summer, you have a 55% survival. And in actual fact, that is what happened with Charlie and Masqua, because one is still alive, Masqua, and the other one is dead.
Smeaton says there is available space in southern Alberta. The Kainai Blood Tribe have plenty of land for bears.
They have been extremely supportive of bear release. So they've, in fact, they wrote to the previous minister to say they supported bear release, rescue and release. So obviously, if you're going to release bears, talk to the Kainai and say, what do you recommend? Where should we do it?
Alberta Environment and Parks did not agree to an on-camera interview. They did release a statement, which read in part, "Best practice indicates that releasing wildlife in the location where they were originally found is the best option, which is what was done in the case of the 2 bears rehabilitated at the Cochrane Ecological Institute." After Charlie's death, Alberta Environment and Parks are evaluating the Institute's ability to handle bear cubs. Smeaton says she believes both cubs would likely be alive had their recommendations been followed.
This is the first incident of human-wildlife conflict resulting from wildlife rehab in Alberta to happen ever in Alberta. And we started doing it in '86. So that is a significant indication that it probably wouldn't have happened had they been released as a sibling group up in a suitable release site.
Masqua is apparently doing well so far. She was released in the Grand Cache area. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Cochrane, Alberta.
Coming up after the break, we'll speak with a therapist and public educator about how to handle unwanted messages and the backlash that can follow from speaking out. Here's a look at Friday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. 29 under the sun in Fredericton, 15 in Nain with sunny skies, rain, and 10 for Cartwright. 33 with showers for Montreal, 20 in Sept-Îles with showers. A rainy day for Sarnia, London, and Toronto with a high of 34. Sunny and 28 in Thunder Bay, showers and 25 for Sioux Lookout. 14 under sunny skies in Churchill, showers for the Paw with a high of 20, 18 with rain in Norway House. A sunny day for Winnipeg with a high of 25, 24 for Gimli and Brandon. In Saskatchewan, showers in Regina with high of 22, 19 for Saskatoon and North Battleford with rain on the way, 20 with showers in Meadow Lake. Welcome back. A broader conversation about online harassment continues to unfold following online accusations of unwanted messages online from Manitoba's top Indigenous leader. For more on what to do if it happens to you, we're joined now in studio by Jara Fraser, a public education facilitator in the Sexual Assault Crisis Program at Clinic in Winnipeg, and via Skype, Deanna J. Ledoux, a grief and recovery therapist and mental health therapist. She's the CEO of her own company, Women Building Bridges. Thanks to you both for taking some time. Jara, maybe if we could start with you, and just how prevalent is this type of harassment?
So it's actually extremely prevalent when we think about a more trauma-informed kind of definition of sexualized violence, which really includes not only sexual assault that has an element of touch, but sexual assault that also includes harassment and experiences that can elicit a sexual assault trauma response that necessarily don't include touch. So when we broaden our understanding to include all of those pieces, it's quite gendered and it's quite prevalent in terms of anything that's unwanted or uninvited, and really makes the person on the receiving end uncomfortable or fearful, or at times elicit those trauma responses we see with any kind of sexualized violence.
Deanna, is online harassment something that you hear a lot of?
I hear about this almost daily from peers, from friends, other friends on social media, and it's really prevalent in not only First Nations societies, but in every society.
Deanna, what type of counseling do you offer, and what's out there for people that are seeking counseling?
For people that have been affected by harassment via social media, there's all types of counseling. The First Nations can access therapy through their bands if they are on a First Nation, or if they go into the city. There's a lot of offices that they can go to access counseling there as well.
And here in Winnipeg at Clinic where you work, what type of counseling do you offer there?
So at Clinic we have a few options. It's no cost and no referral, so folks can access our sexual assault crisis counseling lines 24/7 and speak to someone if they themselves have been affected by sexual violence, including sexual harassment. And also for loved ones or secondary survivors, folks who might be responding to disclosures or supporting someone who's also going through this and seeking the right fit in terms of their own healing. So we have the telephone lines, which is a crisis response, so 24/7. We also have in-person counseling options, again for secondary survivors and survivors. But we're not the only resource in the city. Ganniganichak, Heart Medicine Lodge, Sage House, other agencies within the city are able to respond to sexualized violence in different ways. So survivors have lots of choices.
Jara, are there some steps or first steps someone should take when being harassed online?
So really I would just encourage folks to kind of listen to what their experience is and what they might need next. It's really normal to kind of internalize our victim blaming culture, which might mean minimizing the experience, taking in messages around, well, there wasn't touch, so why is it impacting me in this way so significantly? So just really letting yourself have the space to listen to what you need and respond in a way that feels like the right fit for the individual. So knowing that this was an experience that took away a sense of choice, power, and control, we want to do everything we can to give back a sense of choice, power, and control, including what survivors might like to do next, and knowing that that's really their choice and we need to honor that.
Do you have any steps for yourself that you feel we didn't touch on that people should take when being harassed online?
The first thing that you can do is to confront the person directly, and this more than likely will stop it. But if it doesn't, you need to keep track of the messages. You need to ask your carrier to keep the messages for you, take screenshots, and again, if it continues, to go to the police or to the RCMP, because any type of inboxing repeatedly that's unsolicited is considered harassment.
Deanna, what type of support is out there? Or do you have any advice for those that, speak out and then face an onslaught of backlash online or elsewhere?
A lot of times, the perpetrators of these inboxes or of the harassment will villainize the victims in an attempt to make themselves look innocent. What I would do is to continue seeking support, not only from your peers, but and also to expose them. One of the ladies that posted online yesterday, she said, should I expose this individual that was harassing her online? Yes, expose them. Expose them, let other people know that this is their character, and eventually they'll have to stop harassing women. But mind you, it's not only men that harass. I've had male clients who have come to me being harassed by females. So this is not just a man perpetrating women, this is women perpetrating men.
Right. Jared, for yourself, any advice to those out there that are facing backlash for speaking out?
I think I would just encourage survivors to trust themselves and to know what they need and to seek out what feels like the right fit for them, as these are all really personal and individual decisions in terms of reporting options, healing options, counseling options, and just talking to someone who can help you unpack that can be really meaningful in of itself.
Deanna, Jared, we'll have to leave it there. Big thanks to you both for taking some time for us.
Thanks for having us.
Dragon's Den-like competition at a powwow has led one entrepreneur to grow his own business. More on that coming up after the break. Showers and 28 for high level. 19 and sunny for Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, a high of just 14 for Calgary. Sunny skies and 21 in Campbell River and Vancouver, 22 with showers in Bella Coola. Rain and 27 for Fort Nelson, 15 with rain for Prince George. 22 and showers in Old Crow, 21 with rain for Whitehorse. Sun's out for Fort Liard and Trout Lake with a high of 28. 22 is the high for Yellowknife. 8 for Sax Harbor, 23 and rain for Colville Lake. 15 in Repulse Bay, 17 for Baker Lake, Arviette, and Whale Cove, 12 in Resolute, 11 with showers in Igloolik. Welcome back. An Algonquin man from Kitigan-Zibi is brewing up success with his organic tea leaf garden. Our Amber Bernard has more.
All right, I'll just grab some peppermint from here and hang this up.
Keoki White Duck grows dozens of tea leaf plants in his small but thriving garden. He's been tending to tea leaves for about 5 years in his family's backyard in Chelsea, Quebec, and recently took top prize in Powwow Pitch, an Indigenous entrepreneurial competition.
And then they select winners, and I was fortunate to win the first place prize.
He won $5,000 that will go towards growing his business.
This plant is a really interesting one. It's probably the most out of any plant to have in the garden. It's the most attractive towards bees.
What started out as a punishment quickly turned into a passion for white duck.
It came back when I was in high school. I missed a rugby game, and my dad was not happy with me, so he made me work outside and now where my vegetable garden is, pulling a sumac tree out of bricks. And we got to talking about soils and growing stuff, and so he brought me to the store and he bought me some seeds, and I planted my first seeds that day, and I've been planting seeds ever since.
While he plants many different kinds of tea leaves, White Duck says it's important he maintains traditional Algonquin medicines in his garden too.
In my garden, I have over 100 different kinds of plants, and I do have a few traditional Anishinaabe plants. I know raspberry leaf has been a tea that a lot of cultures around the world, but our Algonquin culture have used it as a medicine. It's primarily for women for thousands of years.
White Duck plans to purchase land and expand his business within the next year. But his ultimate dream is to work full-time in his garden. For now, he works as a landscaper on the side.
Well, coming in the garden and just working in my garden all day just makes me the happiest person. If I could do this job full-time, I would be a very happy man.
White Duck has multiple small gardens located between Kitigan-Zibi and Chelsea. In total, he estimates he has about an acre of land, but it's quickly filling up.
So I'm hoping to start summer 2020 to get a property and then start building a very large garden.
Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Chelsea, Quebec.
And that is your APTN National News for this Thursday. For the latest, including an exclusive story on Manitoba's top Indigenous leader, visit our website aptnnews.ca and stay up to date with the latest by downloading the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.